When I finally came back to Minneapolis after 6 exhausting months overseas, I carried with me nothing but excitement. I had planned everything down to the smallest detail. The international branch in Zurich had finally stabilized, the contracts were signed, the endless nights of work were behind me. I wanted to give Damien, my boyfriend of 5 years, a surprise he would never forget. I bought a ticket without telling him, arriving a full day before his birthday, so I could walk through the door, present the gift I had chosen with such care, and capture on camera the joy lighting up his face. I even tucked a tiny hidden camera into my bag, because I wanted to record his raw reaction, something we could both laugh about years later. I thought it would be perfect. I thought I knew exactly how it would go, but when I reached Skyline Loft 21C, the apartment we had called our home, something felt wrong before I even crossed the threshold. I punched in the digits of my birthday, the code we had always used on the fingerprint lock. The machine blinked red. Incorrect. I tried again, slower this time, carefully pressing each number, willing the lock to accept the code I had memorized. Wrong again. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. I stared at the metal keypad, as if sheer willpower could force it to recognize me. Finally, I tried once more, deliberately, digit by digit. The machine clicked, and instead of unlocking it, announced the system had been locked due to too many failed attempts. The only explanation was that Damien had changed the code. He had changed the code to our home without telling me. I tried to convince myself there had to be a reasonable explanation, but unease crept under my skin. I pressed the doorbell. The chime echoed inside, and a moment later, a clear female voice answered. "Leave it at the door." My breath caught in my throat. I stepped back and looked again at the number etched into the frame. 21C. Correct. The same hallway. The same console table I had bought myself still standing outside the door, with the same small decorative lamp and the pair of shoes I had given Damien resting neatly on top. I was not at the wrong apartment. I was home. So why was there a woman's voice inside? I pressed the bell again. This time the door swung open with irritation. A young woman stood before me, petite. Her dark hair pulled back into a low ponytail, an apron with cartoon prints wrapped around her waist. A wooden spoon clutched in her hand. She looked at me with thinly veiled annoyance, as though I were some delivery person disturbing her dinner. When her eyes finally registered who I was, her expression faltered for a second. Then she quickly rearranged it into indifference. "Who are you looking for?" she asked coldly. I did not answer her. Instead, I rolled my suitcase forward, brushed past her shoulder, and stepped inside the loft that I had furnished, decorated, and paid for with my own salary. Her voice rose behind me, sharp with indignation. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? This is private property. You can't just walk in here. I could call the police." She grabbed my arm, but I shook her off and let my gaze sweep across the room. Everything was wrong. The living room no longer looked like the one I had left. Pink throw pillows sat on the white sofa. A knitted blanket with Damien's name stitched into it was draped across the armrest. A pastel rug, floral curtains, trinkets I had never seen before. The Scandinavian minimalism I loved had been buried under layers of someone else's taste. I turned back to the woman, my voice low and even. "I should be the one asking who you are. Why are you in my home, and where is Damien?" as if summoned by my words. The front door opened again. Damien's voice floated in, casually warm and familiar, calling into the loft. "Little picky eater, I finally found the coconut water brand you like. I had to stop by 3 different supermarkets. You'd better treat me well tonight. Shoulder rubs, foot massages, the whole package." His tone was playful, teasing the tone of a man who felt completely at ease. Then he looked up. Our eyes met. His face drained of color. "Elara," his voice cracked. When did you get back?" He kicked off his shoes hastily, nearly tripping, and rushed toward me. The woman immediately softened her expression, stepped toward him, and took the grocery bag from his hands with practiced familiarity, setting it gently on the dining table where 3 dishes and a soup already waited steaming. I stood frozen, watching the two of them move together with unspoken rhythm. Damien's arms wrapped around me suddenly, his grip tight, his breath uneven. "Why didn't you call? You should have let me pick you up. You're back so suddenly." His embrace should have been comforting, but it felt foreign stiff, almost like he was trying to erase the sight I had just witnessed. I did not raise my hands to hold him back. I pulled away, staring into his eyes. The man in front of me was my boyfriend of 5 years, yet in that moment he felt like a stranger. My voice was steady, but edged with steel. "Who is she?" Damien's gaze flickered nervously toward the woman, then back to me. He stumbled over his words. "I told you before, didn't I? She's the cook from the meal service in the building. She's been helping me with food. Just a dining companion." I let out a soft laugh, bitter and cold. A dining companion, a stranger in my kitchen, setting the table with matching bowls, telling me to wait while she finds me a plastic container, because apparently my loft only had 2 real sets of dishes. And Damien standing there swallowing nervously, looking anywhere but at me, as if my hurt and disbelief were less important than preserving her comfort. In that instant, I realized the birthday surprise I had planned was gone, crushed beneath the weight of betrayal that was only beginning to unfold. I remembered then vaguely that Damien had once mentioned someone from the building's meal service. Because of his erratic hours streaming online, he often skipped proper meals. Before I left for Zurich, I had worried about him, so I transferred money to his account and signed him up for the most expensive healthy meal service available. I thought it was the least I could do while I was away. But that service had never included anyone cooking in the apartment itself. That was not how it worked. Damien, noticing the look on my face, hurried to explain. He said that at first there had been several customers, but eventually he was the only one left. And so Marissa, this woman now standing before me in her apron, had decided to just come into the loft and cook for him directly. His tone was almost apologetic, yet not ashamed enough, as if he still expected me to accept the arrangement without question. Before I could respond, Marissa carried out another dish from the kitchen. She wiped her hands on her apron and smiled sweetly at me. "Try it," she said cheerfully, as though she were the gracious host and I the guest. I forced my lips into something resembling composure, though my chest was a storm. "Yes, sit down," Damien added quickly, pulling out a chair beside him, his eyes bright with an eagerness that felt both childish and offensive. "Marissa is an amazing cook. You'll love it." His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, already salivating at the sight of the food she had prepared. I lowered myself into the chair, stiff, unmoving, while the two of them exchanged glances over the table. Then Marissa turned her attention back to Damien, her voice playful. "Why are you just standing there? Bring her a glass of water." Right, Damien stammered, jumping up as if suddenly awakened. He reached for a pink cup on the table, but Marissa scolded him gently, laughter in her voice. "Not that one, silly, that's mine." Her possessive tone made the air between us thick with tension. Damien flushed, embarrassed, and put it down quickly, fumbling through the cabinets until Marissa chuckled and said she would handle it. She pulled a clean glass from the shelf and set it in front of me with deliberate ease, while Damien scratched the back of his head, sheepishly smiling as though nothing about this felt wrong. Together they moved around the kitchen with practiced comfort, one scooping rice, the other pouring water, while I sat frozen, my hands folded tightly in my lap, my eyes fixed on them as though I were watching a couple in their own home. When Damien finally placed the glass in front of me, he reached out to stroke my hair, his voice soft with forced cheer. "Why do you look so cold, sweetheart?" The word stung. Sweetheart. As if he could anchor me to this place with one word, as if nothing had changed. Only then did it hit me fully like a slap that this man was still technically my boyfriend, that I was still supposed to be the woman of this home. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, when the sharp sound of shattering dishes rang out from the kitchen, followed by Marissa's startled cry. Instantly, Damien panicked, bolting from his chair, rushing to her as if nothing else mattered. I sat still, my nails digging into my palms, listening to the worried murmur of his voice. "Careful, don't touch it, you'll cut yourself. Forget the dish, I don't care, are you hurt?" Marissa's voice trembled with practiced vulnerability. Sorry, I'm so clumsy. It's fine, as long as you're not hurt. Damien soothed. Their voices fell to low whispers, words I could not quite catch, and I shut my eyes, unwilling to hear more. Soon they returned, each carrying a bowl of rice. One bowl bore a cartoon dog, the other a kitten. Damien set his in front of himself, while Marissa placed the kitten bowl before her with a small laugh, as if the symmetry of their dishes were some inside joke. Only then did she glance at me, her hand flying to her mouth, as though she had suddenly remembered something. Oh no, I forgot there are only 2 proper bowls in the house. Her smile widened just slightly, her tone dripping with mock innocence. Don't worry, I'll get you something else. She disappeared into the kitchen and re-emerged moments later with a disposable plastic bowl, placing it in front of me with exaggerated guilt. I stared at it silently, my lips curving upward into a smile so sharp it could have cut glass. Damien, oblivious, lifted his own bowl eagerly and bit into a piece of chicken wing, his eyes closing with pleasure. Delicious, he muttered between chews, glancing at me with all the enthusiasm of a child showing off a toy. Try it, Elara, it's amazing. Marissa beamed at him, half genuine, half mocking, and added lightly, Yes, make yourself at home. Her words hit harder than any dish thrown against the floor. Make yourself at home, in my own loft. The irony was almost unbearable. Make yourself at home, Marissa said with that mocking little smile, the kind of smile only a woman, certain of her place, would dare to wear. Her words were dripping with the authority of a mistress claiming territory that wasn't hers yet. What cut deepest was Damien's silence. He didn't flinch, didn't correct her, didn't remind her that this was my loft, my sanctuary. He sat there as if her words made perfect sense, as if somewhere deep inside he truly believed she had the right to say them. The weight of that realization dragged me down like an anchor to the ocean floor. Then, almost theatrically, Marissa let out a little squeal. Oh, I forgot, I still have this apron on, she laughed, tapping her forehead as if she had simply been careless. With a playful flourish, she slipped the apron over her head, revealing the outfit beneath. My breath caught violently. She wore nothing but an oversized white button-down, the fabric so thin it was practically transparent, hanging off her shoulders in a way that revealed far more than it concealed. One glance upward was all it took to see what was underneath, or rather what wasn't. My head spun, my stomach lurched. The room seemed to tilt around me as a sickening clarity settled in. Marissa smirked, her eyes locked on mine, in deliberate challenge as she bit down softly on her chopsticks, then turned toward Damien, her voice dripping with girlish charm. Sweetheart, grab me a wing, will you? It's too far for me to reach. Of course, Damien said, instantly leaning forward with his chopsticks, eager to oblige, eager to please. That was the breaking point. Something inside me snapped. If I sat there 1 second longer, pretending not to see what was laid out so brazenly before me, I would become the fool of my own story, a woman crowned with betrayal while the world laughed. I shot to my feet, the chair scraping violently against the floor. In one sweeping motion, my arm cut across the table, sending every dish, every bowl, every carefully prepared item crashing to the ground. The shatter of porcelain and the splash of sauce exploded across the hardwood floor, splattering Marissa's pristine shirt with streaks of grease. She shrieked, stumbling back, her eyes brimming with tears as she clutched at the soiled fabric. Elara, what the hell are you doing? Damien roared, his voice booming. My name hurled like an accusation. Have you lost your mind? Do you even know how crazy you sound right now? He slammed his chopsticks against the table, anger radiating from him. But I only laughed, a sound sharp and bitter that clawed its way out of my chest. Do you want me to apologize to her? Yes, Damien snapped without hesitation, his voice hard, commanding, as if my compliance was expected. Before he could blink, my hand whipped across his face, the crack of the slap echoing through the loft. Marissa gasped, her voice breaking in disbelief, while I grabbed Damien by the ear, yanking him down with every ounce of fury in my body. I shoved him toward her, my voice seething. Isn't this what you want? Apologies. In one swift motion, I reached for Marissa, my fingers curling around the thin fabric of her shirt, tugging it sharply downward. Her pale skin flashed under the light bare unhidden. My voice cut like glass. Before I apologize, why don't you explain to me, Damien, why she is standing in my kitchen in my shirt without any underwear? Damien's face went ashen, his eyes widened, darting helplessly between us. No, this can't be, he stammered, staring at Marissa, as if hoping the sight before him would dissolve. His throat moved, and to my disgust, he swallowed hard, involuntarily betraying the desire he tried so desperately to deny. Marissa's hands flew to her chest, panic flashing across her face, but when Damien's words spilled out next, they cut deeper than any knife. No, baby, listen, it's not like that. I don't know why she's dressed like this. She's just the cook, that's all. I only eat the food, nothing more. Marissa froze. Her hands trembled, her eyes glossed with tears as she looked at Damien, devastated by his quick disavowal. For a moment she looked every bit the victim, fragile and betrayed, but still she turned those tearful eyes toward him, begging silently for his defense. He avoided her gaze, clutching my wrist tightly instead, desperation filling his voice. Elara, believe me, she means nothing. It's just friendship, a pure friendship, nothing more. I jerked my hand free, my expression ice. Friendship. A man and a woman alone in a loft, she half naked in a see-through shirt, and he dared to call it friendship. He might believe those words, but I could not. We've been together 5 years, Damien pleaded, panic overtaking his features. You know me better than anyone. I can't even watch explicit videos online without feeling disgusted. I'm honest. I would never cheat. I swear to you, I don't know why she isn't wearing anything under that shirt. He looked ready to drop to his knees and swear an oath, his face twisted with fear, but the damage was already done. I was done arguing with Damien, done listening to his frantic explanations that meant nothing. My eyes shifted to Marissa, the woman who from the very moment I stepped through the door had not stopped provoking me, who had dared to speak as if she owned the loft I had built with my own hands. She clutched the hem of her shirt tightly now, her eyes brimming with tears, as if she were the one being bullied, as if she had not been the one taunting me with every word, every glance. Elara, she whispered my name with trembling lips, her voice thick with tears. Damien and I are clean, completely innocent. Her tone quivered with feigned sincerity, but her final words were sharp, calculated, meant to sting. Only people with filthy hearts see filth in everything. Her provocation burned through me, but I refused to let her drag me down. My voice was steady, almost cold. So what you are telling me is that I'm the one who stripped you of your underwear, that I forced you to put on a see-through shirt and stand here cooking for my boyfriend. By your logic, if I walk in one day and find the two of you naked in bed, you'll still claim I'm the one thinking dirty, that you were just talking. I rose slowly from my chair, towering over her. My words cut through her flimsy defenses like a blade. Tell me, Marissa, do you believe that yourself? Her face twisted, colors shifting from pale white to blotchy purple. She had not expected me to strike so directly, to expose her games without hesitation. For once she was left speechless, looking like nothing more than a clown caught mid-act. She bit her lip, her gaze darting desperately toward Damien, pleading for him to step in to shield her. But when their eyes met, Damien lowered his head, unable to face either of us. Marissa's fist clenched, her desperation flickering into defiance. She looked back at me, her voice rising. I can swear to you that nothing indecent has ever happened between us. Then came the performance. Her voice trembled, her tears rolled down freely. I wear clothes like this because of a medical condition, she said, her tone breaking. My skin reacts badly to fabrics. I get rashes and hives if I wear tight or heavy material. I can only wear breathable clothes like this. Now you know my secret. Are you happy? And with that she spun on her heel, sobbing dramatically, running out the door and slamming it so hard the walls shook. For a long moment the loft fell into silence. Damien stood rooted to the spot, staring at the door she had just exited, his face carved with something close to grief. Finally, he muttered under his breath almost to himself. So that's it? She's sick. The words knocked the air out of me. I stared at him stunned until he turned to me, his eyes filled with misplaced righteousness. Elara, why did you have to be so cruel to her? She's already suffering, and you had to stab her deeper. Don't you feel guilty? Don't you have any compassion? His wide, naive eyes only fueled the rage, trembling through my body. My hands shook, my whole frame shuddered under the weight of it. As if it wasn't enough, he went further, twisting the knife. Later tonight, I'll take you to her place. You can apologize to her in person. I had no strength left to waste on his delusions. Without a word, I reached for the last bowl of rice on the table. My movements were calm, almost too calm. He frowned, starting to say something, but before his lips could form the words, I hurled the entire bowl into his face. The rice exploded against his skin, the ceramic clattering to the floor. Damien, we are over. Being with you has been the greatest mistake of my life. His face contorted, red and furious. Elara, have you lost your mind? You don't get to break up with me. I don't agree to this. His voice rose into a shout, echoing against the walls, his indignation painting him as the victim. You come back after months away and start a fight wrecking the house. What's wrong with you? Then his eyes narrowed, his suspicion cutting like a blade. Unless you've already been with someone else. That's it, isn't it? You're projecting blaming me because you've been unfaithful. His pupils dilated as the thought rooted deeper. He stared at me as if the truth had revealed itself, his voice shaking with conviction. That's it. You have someone else. He shouted the words so loudly the air trembled, his face flushed crimson with rage. Elara, after everything I've done for you, is this how you repay me? I almost laughed at the absurdity. His logic collapsed under its own weight. Redirection, false reasoning, shifting blame. We had been talking about his relationship with Marissa, about the intimacy laid bare in front of me, and instead of answering, he twisted the conversation, accusing me of betrayal. It was manipulation cloaked as logic, his desperation laid bare in the most pathetic way. He wasn't explaining, he wasn't defending. He was simply rewriting reality. Instead of answering for the intimacy I had just witnessed between him and Marissa, Damien turned everything on me, accusing me of having someone else, of staging this entire confrontation as a way to justify leaving him. It was deliberate misdirection, a smokescreen designed to cloud the truth. He had twisted my rightful suspicion into irrational jealousy, weaponizing my hurt into his defense. And that was when something inside me shifted. The anger that had been burning so violently moments ago began to ebb, replaced by a cold, steady clarity. I looked at him, this man I had loved for nearly 5 years, and I wondered when exactly he had become the stranger standing before me. Had he always been this way, and I had chosen not to see it? Or had I painted him in colors he never truly wore? Blinded by the lens of love, I didn't have the answer. All I knew was that I could no longer keep loving the man Damien had become. He shifted under my gaze, restless, suddenly uneasy, as though my silence were louder than any accusation. His voice came out dry, defensive. Why are you staring at me like that? You're the one who's wrong here, not me. Are you sure about that? I asked coolly, my voice like ice. Would you dare trade phones with me right now? The question startled him. His eyes darted nervously, flickering toward the bowl I had thrown at his face earlier. He quickly looked away, and in that instant, his fear betrayed him more than words ever could. My eyes caught the cartoon dog printed on the porcelain, a match to the kitten bowl I had seen Marissa using. The craftsmanship was distinctive, too fine to be something Damien would ever buy for himself. And then it hit me. A month ago, Damien had told me he was traveling to a gaming expo in Austin. But now I could see the truth with brutal clarity. He hadn't gone alone. Those bowls, handcrafted and unique, weren't his purchase. They were souvenirs chosen together, a pair. I didn't even bother looking at him as the realization sank in. I simply let a bitter smile curl across my lips. So the two of you went on a little trip, didn't you? The sound of porcelain shattering answered me before Damien could. He had dropped the bowl, his hands trembling, his expression painted with panic. I didn't need to see his face to know it. His silence screamed louder than any denial. Not together, he stammered, his voice breaking. We just... I cut him off sharply. I don't care. I don't care where you went. I don't care what you did. And I don't care what story you've rehearsed. I don't want to hear another word from you. The evidence had been there from the moment I stepped into the loft. The matching dishes, the pair of mugs, the ease with which Marissa moved around as though she belonged the decorations that screamed of her presence. Every corner bore her fingerprints. The apartment I had left 6 months ago had been rewritten in her image, and Damien had let it happen. Whether or not he called it an affair was irrelevant. The betrayal was undeniable. My decision was made. Break up immediately. I straightened, my voice firm, unshakable. You changed the door code, didn't you? Damien froze, thrown off balance by the sudden shift in topic. His brow furrowed as he thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah. Marissa forgets the code sometimes when she comes over to cook. I usually have my headset on while I'm streaming so I don't hear the doorbell. She would wait outside for hours, so I changed it to something easier for her to remember. He hesitated, then admitted quietly, The code now is 990817. The numbers echoed in my head, ringing like a verdict. I didn't need to think twice. August 17th, Marissa's birthday. I had promised myself I wouldn't lose my temper again, that I would not waste any more rage on him. But hearing Damien confess so casually that he had rewritten the lock to our home with another woman's birthday was like pouring gasoline on a fire that had barely begun to die. My blood boiled, my vision blurred. I raised my hand slowly, deliberately, every muscle trembling with the desire to strike him. Damien stiffened immediately, his eyes squeezing shut, his body locking in fear. He braced himself for the impact, for the pain that he deserved. But instead of striking, I lowered my hand just as slowly, letting it hover before his face, then drop softly to my side. He exhaled in relief, opening one eye to peek at me, his lips curving into a smile of smug confidence. I knew you wouldn't hit me. I knew it, you would never hit me. Damien smirked, his relief palpable. But before the smugness could fully form on his lips, my palm came crashing across his face. The sound reverberated through the loft as he stumbled back, clutching his cheek, his eyes wide in shock. Damien Harlow, this is my home, I declared, my voice unshakable. I bought it outright with my money. Every inch of it belongs to me. You have no right to change anything here, not even the door code. He gaped at me, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came. I scanned the room, taking in what had become of the loft I once loved. It had been desecrated. Pink curtains hung where my sleek neutrals had been. The sofa was covered with white and blush throw pillows. 2 rabbit-shaped cushions sat side by side, and a massive knitted blanket, embroidered with Damien's name, was draped across the back. Even the dark oak TV console I had chosen carefully had been painted a cheap, milky white. It was suffocating, hideous, vulgar. I walked to the table, picked up Marissa's pink mug in one hand and Damien's blue one in the other. For a moment I studied them, feeling the weight of their cheap symbolism. Then without hesitation, I let them fall to the floor. They shattered instantly. I don't need any of this, I said coldly, my voice calm and merciless. I turned and stormed into the bedroom, throwing the door open, and froze at the sight of a floral bedsheet I had never seen before. The anger inside me twisted into laughter, dark and bitter. Damien rushed in behind me, his face flushed. It's not what you think, he blurted. Last time Marissa spilled soup on the old sheets, she felt bad and insisted on buying a new set. I was too lazy to change them back. If you don't like it, I'll order another right now. He fumbled with his phone, desperate to appease me. I raised my own phone, snapped a few pictures of the bed and the rest of the room, then stopped him. Don't bother, I'll have my attorney and my financial advisor come over and calculate the damages. He froze, staring at me as if I were speaking another language. What do you mean, damages? I leveled my gaze at him, my words sharp. Do you really think you and Marissa can trash my home, redecorate it into this nightmare, and then walk away with a simple apology, Damien? I am not a charity. I left him standing dumbfounded as I moved to the study. Within the hour, Thaddeus, Crowell, and Genevieve Stratton had joined me. They were efficient, methodical, and relentless. With my receipts, photos, and descriptions, they quickly calculated the total damage, $278,000. I slid the printed report across the table toward Damien. The photographs spoke for themselves. The custom refrigerator and cabinets in the kitchen, the TV console, the tiling in the patio and bathroom, all altered without my consent. The antique collectibles in my office compromised. That's enough, he snapped, his eyes blazing as though he no longer recognized me. Marissa wanted to make changes, and I agreed. There's no need to make a big deal of this. I'll just tell her to apologize. He pulled out his phone, about to text her. I tapped the table with one finger, commanding his attention. It's not just her. You will both compensate me? The words hit him like lightning. His face paled, his hands trembling. Elara, I'm your boyfriend. How can you be so heartless? Just because I got close to another woman, you're going to treat me like this. Without hesitation, I lifted a glass of cold water and threw it into his face. Then listen carefully. We are no longer together. Don't you dare drag romance into this. You and she have destroyed my property, and you will pay. If you don't, we'll settle this at the police station. His face darkened instantly, rage and disbelief twisting his features. Elara Winslow, he hissed, his voice low and trembling. In the past, seeing Damien that furious might have made me instinctively try to soothe him, to calm the storm before it broke. But that woman I once was no longer existed. I didn't even spare him another glance. Instead, I pulled out my phone and dialed the police. The moment the line connected, Damien lunged forward, slapping the phone from my hand. Fine, fine, his voice trembled with rage. You really have to go this far? Then so be it. Break up it is. But don't you dare regret it. I drew in a deep breath, exhaustion pressing into my skull. He never stopped circling the same tired script of betrayal, heartbreak, and empty threats. He could not comprehend that what mattered now wasn't his wounded pride. It was the damage he and Marissa had left stamped across my home. $278,000 of it. That number was all that mattered. When he stormed toward the door, dragging his suitcase behind him, chest puffed out with indignation, I called after him. Damien turned, a smug smile stretching across his face. What, you changed your mind? You don't really want to leave me? If you apologize now, maybe I'll forgive you. We won't have to break up. I looked at him the way one looks at a fool, flat and unamused. No. I only want Marissa's contact information before you leave. This loft, this damage, neither of you is walking away unscathed. The grin vanished from his face. His hands tightened on the suitcase handle, his jaw flexing, but in the end, he scribbled her number and left without another word. His departure trailed the sound of muffled sobs echoing through the hallway, but that was no longer my concern. My only focus now was restitution. I added Damien and Marissa into a group chat I titled The Compensation Ledger. Damien was the first to speak. Love nest, he typed with a smug flourish. I didn't bother to reply, only watched as he quickly deleted the message, realizing how pathetic it looked. I silenced the chat and sent the itemized list of damages along with a single line. Please transfer full payment within 10 days. What happened between them was irrelevant. How they split the money was irrelevant. My demand was all that mattered. The next day, I gutted the loft of every trace of them, hauling out the nauseating pinks and frills, the rabbit pillows and childish blankets. By nightfall, my apartment was beginning to breathe again, slowly returning to its former self. On the second day, I replaced every lock and installed cameras, both inside and outside layers of steel, between me and their intrusion. On the third, a professional cleaning crew scoured every room until the air itself felt purified. It was then that one of the cleaners emerged from the bedroom, holding up a piece of pink lace with a raised brow. A thong. Do you want us to toss this? For a moment, revulsion made me want to scream, yes, but something inside me shifted. Keep it, I said coolly. I snapped a photo, attached it to the group chat, and tagged Marissa directly. Is this yours? Her reply came almost instantly in a voice message, her tone sharp and venomous. Yes, it's mine. So what? Damien bought it for me, old hag. Jealous much? My fingers didn't shake as I typed back. Good, I found it under my bed. Which tells me you two were sleeping here. I'll be adding the mattress and frame to the damage report. 46,000 total. Silence swallowed the group for nearly a full minute. Then Marissa broke, flooding the chat with more than 10 voice messages, each one the full 60 seconds, her voice shrill and desperate. I didn't listen to a single one. Instead, I uploaded the legal clause Thaddeus had drafted for me, outlining criminal liability for property destruction. Marissa's torrent of messages stopped instantly. After a long pause, Damien finally chimed in. His words brittle. Elara, do you really have to take it this far? My reply was short, merciless. Under state law, property damage can result in 3 to 7 years in prison. The chat went dead, the silence almost a relief. No one dared reply. Days passed without a word. On the 8th day, Damien showed up at my door, disheveled and unshaven, Marissa clinging to his arm. Damien tried the keypad out of habit, punching in codes with the same arrogance he had always carried, but after 3 failed attempts, the lock blinked red. Only then did reality seem to strike him. He pulled out his phone and called me, his voice trembling, as if the ground beneath him had collapsed. You changed the locks, Elara. You even changed the code. I tried your birthday, my birthday, our anniversary. None of them work. His voice cracked, desperate. Elara, do you really not love me anymore? We've known each other for almost 10 years, been together for 5. I let silence hang for a moment, then answered coolly. Are you asking if I should tack on emotional damages as well? His choked gasp was the only reply I needed. I opened the camera feed from the new security system and saw his broken face pressed close to the door. His eyes bloodshot, fixed on the wood as though it might open if he stared hard enough. Marissa was beside him, clutching him, pressing his head into her chest, and for once she had the sense to wear a bra. They clung to each other outside my loft, their eyes locking before they kissed hungrily, hands sliding under each other's shirts, right there in the hallway. I cleared my throat loudly through the intercom, then spoke into the mic. Need me to bring out the bed for you? They jolted apart as if struck by lightning. Damien shoved Marissa so hard she stumbled back, crashing onto the floor with a yelp. He shot one horrified look at the camera, then bolted, not even glancing back. Marissa scrambled after him, tears streaking down her face, clutching herself like the tragic heroine she wanted me to believe she was. I saved the footage and posted it in the compensation ledger group with a single note. Love each other deeply if you must, but don't do it at my front door. Because if you force me to change another lock, I'll be billing you for that too. Neither of them replied, but I knew they watched it probably again and again, choking on their own humiliation. It no longer mattered. What mattered was the deadline. 10 days, payment in full. Damien was no real streamer despite the persona he paraded online. He had no serious setup, no income, not even the discipline to treat it as work. He was a leech, and I had been his willing host, funding his toys, paying his subscriptions, even letting him freeload on my credit. The moment I cut off his secondary card, I knew his account couldn't hold more than a few $100s. As for Marissa, her cheap taste and gaudy appearance told me everything I needed to know. She had nothing of real value. That was why curiosity tugged at me. How would they manage to scrape together more than 30 grand to pay me? When they finally showed up again, I got my answer. They arrived carrying a battered suitcase, their expressions twisted with self-righteous fury. Damien ripped it open and pulled out a stack of cash, flinging it at me with theatrical disgust. Isn't this what you wanted, Elara money fine? Take it. I caught the bundle, flipped through it, and my eyes narrowed in genuine surprise. Real bills. He reached for another stack, ready to hurl it at me. But before he could play the victim any further, I yanked the suitcase toward me, dragging it out of his reach in one swift motion. Enough with the show. We're going to the bank to verify this. Enough, I said, yanking the suitcase toward me before Damien could fling another stack of bills in my face. Stop performing. We're going to the bank to verify this. His face twisted with fury. His jaw locked so tight I thought he might break his own teeth. On the drive there, he and Marissa clung to each other like star-crossed lovers in some cheap soap opera, kissing and touching in exaggerated displays meant for my eyes alone. Damien kept sneaking glances at me, searching desperately for jealousy, for pain, for anything that would confirm he still had power over me. But all he saw was relief. At last, the mess was being resolved. The weight of months of betrayal and anger was finally lifting. When we finished at the bank, I turned to leave, but Damien caught my arm. I frowned, ready to shake him off, but he hesitated, lips trembling, unable to form words. Just as my patience waned, he finally choked them out. From now on, Elara, the river is wide, the road is long, and we go our separate ways. You'll never find a man as good as me again. Even in that moment, he couldn't resist acting the part of the tragic lover. My voice was cold, my goodbye final. Then I wish you two eternal happiness. May your love bear fruit. Without another glance, I blocked their numbers, deleted every trace of them from my phone, and went home to pack. Within weeks, the loft was on the market, and soon after I was on a plane leaving Minneapolis, and its ghosts behind. But 2 months later, after the loft had been sold, Damien returned in the middle of the night. Drunk, desperate, he fought with the new owner until both were dragged to the police station. He ranted and raved, even threatened to harm himself, demanding to see me. The realtor contacted me on the owner's behalf, and only then did I discover the truth. The money Damien had so theatrically thrown at me wasn't his at all. He had borrowed it, not just the $32,000 he repaid me, but close to $50,000 in total. After settling his debt to me, he squandered the rest, traveling with Marissa, shopping, living as though consequences didn't exist. When the bills came due, there was nothing left. Damien turned to Marissa for help, and at first she soothed him, promised she would stand by him. But by the next morning, she was gone. She took everything: his phone, his laptop, and the few pathetic scraps of cash that remained. Cornered, penniless, abandoned, Damien tried to find me again, as if I might still save him. He showed up at my new place, saw another man there, and in his rage attacked him. Once more, the police dragged him away. He insisted he was my fiancé, demanding to see me making a spectacle of himself. The realtor called, her voice hesitant. "He refuses to leave," she said. "He wants to talk to you. Should I?" "No," I cut in, my voice steady as I scrolled through my work emails. "I don't know this man. If charges must be pressed, press them. If the law must deal with him, then let it." Minutes later, a video appeared on my phone sent by the realtor. Damien sprawled on the pavement outside the station, wailing like a broken child. I didn't press play. I didn't respond. Everything he was enduring now was the sum of his own choices. He had no one to blame, no one to curse, no one to beg. Not anymore. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.